Good evening. This 85th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council is now called to order. Members of the council, due to us being in a virtual meeting, please note that I will recognize you by saying you have the floor, and once you do that, you may begin talking. Tonight's invocation will be delivered by Devin James, youth pastor for Destiny Christian Church, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor James.
Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed, holy, and respected is your name. Father, on behalf of all who are gathered, we thank you for the continuous blessings that you have afforded us. Father, we thank you for the blessings of love, and we thank you for the blessings of forgiveness. God, we thank you for the blessing of life, and we thank you for the blessing of health. Father, we thank you for the blessings of friends and family. We thank you for the gift of housing and employment. Father, we thank you for the ability to work together as a collective unit. We thank you, O God, for the leadership and their honorable responsibilities. God, as we engage in this work, we pray according to the scriptures that your kingdom would come and that your will would be done. Father, we pray for the agenda items. God, we pray for the conversation. God, that it would benefit the leadership and the city. Father, we pray for city officials. God, we pray for their wisdom amidst difficult times. God, we pray for their confidence. God, we pray for their peace, their unity, and harmony. Father, we invite you into this meeting, and we give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're supposed to have a showcase tonight. Tonight's showcase is going to be Aya Dannins from Baltimore Safe Haven. Is Aya on the line? Yes, not. All right, there will be no showcase tonight. Roll call. The clerk will call the roll of the members.
President Scott.
Present.
Councilman Cohen.
Present.
Councilwoman McCray.
Present.
Councilman Dorsey.
Present.
Councilman Henry.
Here.
Councilman Schleifer.
Present.
Vice President Middleton.
Present.
Councilman Pinkett.
Present.
Councilman Burnett.
Present.
Councilman Bullock.
Present.
Councilman Reisinger. Councilman Reisinger. Councilman, we see you present, but we need to check on your audio. Councilman Costello. Councilman Costello.
Special Operations Marine instead of
Councilman Costello, we're going to mark that as a present. Councilman Stokes.
Present.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Here.
Councilwoman Clark.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And actually, we will have a showcase. They had some trouble with the WebEx, but we're going to get Mally Hatcher from Baltimore Safe Haven. Mally, the floor is yours.
Mally, you're still muted. There you go.
Mally, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Hatcher. I'm Director of Operations for Baltimore Safe Haven. I am here with our housing manager, Ariel Davis, and our outreach coordinator, Mr. Omar West. We'd like to say thank you and welcome. We'd like to welcome you all into Ireland. I don't know if you all can see us. We're here at the Baltimore Safe Haven Transition House. And basically, we just want to highlight some of the work that we have been tackling over the last couple of months since COVID has been going on. Basically, we have instituted a COVID emergency response program where we have been providing meal distribution and grocery delivery to elderly families and people that were immunocompromised. We've also done essential outreach to individuals individuals that have been out on the street. We have participated in HIV testing numbers and sites. We've also recently, this past Friday, hosted the community's first Black Trans Lives Matter movement, which has been featured in Rolling Stone magazine and on the cover of the June 22nd to June 29th Times magazine. We are running a transitional housing program 24/7 during COVID. We have been continuously striving in our overdose response programming and we have been hosting virtual harm reduction groups via Zoom and WebEx. We actually have two success stories. One of our young ladies is in the process of moving out. She is getting housing, and she is also from survival sector to becoming a CNA. We are continuously striving to end the cycle of violence and trauma here in Baltimore within our community. And we urge that the council and the mayor join us so we can hopefully limit, if not completely eradicate, the new rates of HIV infection, AIDS diagnoses, LGBT homelessness. We're doing as much as we can for the community possible now, and we hope that with the community help and with the council's help, we can do something that can possibly, if not eradicate LGBTQ homelessness here in Baltimore, at least lower the statistics. We also asked about direct services funding to trans organizations. The DNA of the work has been put out. We're here, we're doing it. We're the foot soldiers. We're out in the community, we're doing the work. All we ask is that you all help us continue to maintain the work and continue to drive. At the end of it, we want to do this work as long as we possibly can. And it would help us to know that the city council and the mayor's office back us in the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Allie, and thank you for all your great work. We will now proceed with the adoption of the journal.
Mr. President, the journal of the May 18th, 2020 proceedings have been sent to the council members' inbox.
Without objection, the journal will be adopted. The journal is adopted. Bills vetoed by the mayor can be found in Appendix A and B at the back of the agenda, and bills signed by the mayor can be found on pages 2 through 5 on your agenda. Executive nominations.
EA 20-0276, Natasha M. Dartingue, Member, Board of Directors for the Parking Authority of Baltimore City, District 3.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee. Bills to be introduced.
City Council Bill 20-0536, Minority and Women's Business Program Interim Extension, for the purpose of postponing for an interim period the automatic termination of the Minority and Women's Business Program, providing for a special effective date and generally relating to city procurement requirements. Sponsors, City Council President, on behalf of the administration, Bullock.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0537, Sale of Property, 3200 East Biddle Street, for the purpose of authorizing the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore to sell at either public or private sale all its interest in certain property known as 3200 East Biddle Street and no longer needed for public use, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Council President, on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0538, City Streets closing 2 portions of East Cromwell Street for the purpose of condemning and closing 2 portions of East Cromwell Street between the south side of East McComish Street and the east side of West Peninsula Drive as shown on Plat 347-A-77 in the Office of the Department of Transportation and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Costello.
Councilman Costello, do you want to address this? Nope. This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0539, rezoning 555 Dundalk Avenue and Block 6694, Lot 142, for the purpose of changing the zoning for the properties known as 555 Dundalk Avenue and Block 6694, Lot 142, as outlined in blue on the accompanying plat, from the I-1 zoning district to the INU-2 zoning district, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Cohen.
Chair recognizes Councilman Cohen.
Just ask for my colleagues' support. Hoping to see a local franchisee of a business in my district get to be able to expand. We think it's a good use for this space. There has not been industrial use there for a while. And thank you, Mr. President.
This has been assigned to the Land Use Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0540, corrective city streets, renaming Violet Hill White Way to Violet Hill White Way with a Y, for the purpose of changing the name of Violet Hill White Way, which is located between the 700 blocks of West Lexington Street and West Fayette Street and before Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, to Violet Hill White Way. Sponsor, Costello.
I'm assuming that the councilman doesn't want to address this, or maybe does. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Violet Hill White was the first black police officer in the Baltimore City Police Department. There was an ordinance for this some number of years back. Unfortunately, her name is misspelled, so this is just correcting that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Judiciary Committee. City Council Bill 20-0541, zoning, conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, 1711 Guilford Avenue. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 1711 Guilford Avenue, as outlined in red on the accompanying plat, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Stokes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a single-family dwelling that's going to be converted into a 2-dwelling unit in the R8 zoning district. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Land Use Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0542, commercial vehicle parking, clarification of scope, for the purpose of clarifying certain exceptions regarding the prohibitions set forth in Article 31 on commercial vehicles parking, deleting an unnecessary limitation, conforming related provisions, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Henry.
Chair recognizes Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've had a law on the books for a number of years prohibiting commercial vehicles from parking on residential streets for a length of time, especially overnight. My understanding was the original purpose of that was to prevent large commercial vehicles like trucks from taking up private parking spots in residential neighborhoods. But the way that the law is currently written, it allows for any what I would call normal-sized passenger vehicle to be counted as a commercial vehicle if it has some type of name of a company written on the side of it. And so what this does is it makes it clear that there would be exceptions for private passenger vehicles, including automobiles, minivans, passenger vans, station wagons, sport utility vehicles, pickup trucks, or panel body trucks with less than 1,500-pound manufacturer's rating capacity. The specific incidents that brought this to our attention was there is a company that does contracting work with the city that is deliberately trying to help out its employees who live locally by letting them take some of the pickup trucks home with them in the evening so that they can get to work wherever the job is the next day. But the pickup trucks have the name of the company stenciled on the side, and we were ticketing people in our neighborhoods for bringing their work vehicle home with them when we worked hard to get companies to hire local residents, which seemed to be a conflict. So I look forward to having a conversation in the Transportation Committee about this, and I'll be working with Chairman Dorsey to schedule a good time for that. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Transportation Committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
I'm sorry, I was late on that. I just wanted to be added on as a sponsor, Mr. President.
Yes, please add Councilman Dorsey as a co-sponsor for the bill. Thank you. This has been assigned to the Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0543, COVID-19 employee retention. For the purpose of requiring certain successor business employers taking control over certain businesses from incumbent business employers to retain certain employees, requiring the incumbent business employer to provide the successor business employer with a list of certain employees, permitting a successor business employer from not retaining certain employees under certain circumstances, requiring the posting of notice when certain business undergo a change in control, prohibiting retaliation against employees for seeking assistance from or cooperating with the Wage Commission, empowering the Wage Commission to issue subpoenas and administer oaths, establishing certain procedures for the administration of complaints by the Wage Commission, requiring certain reports, defining certain terms, establishing certain penalties, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsors, Burnett, Bullock.
Add Council President Scott as a co-sponsor, Councilwoman Snead as a co-sponsor, Councilman Henry as a co-sponsor, Councilman Dorsey as a co-sponsor, Councilman Cohen as a co-sponsor. Chair Councilman Reisinger. Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton. Chair recognizes Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. So this bill and the next one are a package of bills that are seeking to address the impact that this pandemic and state of emergency will have on employees. This bill is very similar to the Displaced Worker Act that this body passed, I want to say back in 2017. It was sponsored by Councilmember Snead to give preference to employees who are working in the service industry, and there may be a change in ownership, giving them a window of time to basically prove themselves. This is very similar. It's specific to COVID and the state of emergency, and knowing that there may be a lot of transition in business ownership. This gives those employees who are already working in those spaces preference in a period of time to basically prove themselves to that new employer as they would have likely lost their job or been furloughed due to COVID-19. So look forward to a good discussion in committee on this one, and hope I have everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been
Mr. President, can you include me as a well?
Yep. Please add Councilman Pinkett as a co-sponsor as well. Council Vice President, I had you already. Thank you. This has been assigned to the Labor Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0544, COVID-19 laid off employees' right of recall. For the purpose of requiring certain employers to recall certain employees who have been laid off after the imposition of the COVID-19 state of emergency, specifying the procedures by which the recall would operate, providing retaliation against employees for seeking assistance from or cooperating with the Wage Commission, empowering the Wage Commission to issue subpoenas and administer oaths, establishing certain procedures for administration of complaints by the Wage Commission, requiring certain reports, defining certain terms, establishing certain penalties, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor, Burnett, Bullock.
Please add the Council President as a co-sponsor, Councilman Henry, Council Vice President Middleton, Councilwoman Sneed, Councilman Dorsey as a co-sponsor. Did I miss anybody? I did not. Councilman Burnett, do you want to speak to this one separately?
Sure, I'll keep it short. I mean, this one gives right to return to work preference for employees that are working in travel, entertainment, tourism, hospital sectors, or service workers that were furloughed or laid off during the shelter-in-place order. It gives them a recall ability to come back to work and protects them against distribution for such, and empowers the wage enforcement, wage commission to play a huge role in that. Again, similar to the other bill, that's why I introduced them together, gives a lot of preference to people who are predominantly low-wage workers that are working in this industry, the ability to come back to work, even though they were laid off or furloughed due to a global pandemic that is obviously well beyond anything that they control. So similarly, thank you to the co-sponsors, and I look forward to a good discussion in committee on that.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Labor Committee. Colleagues, we're going to have to recess for 5 minutes. Apparently, Chong TV just went down. So we're going to recess. Just stay on the line. We are now back in session. The last bill was assigned to the Labor Committee. Resolutions to be introduced.
City Council Resolution 20-0230R, ending police brutality, for the purpose of joining our national leaders and coming together to address the issue of police brutality, rooting out and addressing its causes, and calling on prosecutors and judges across the nation to stand firm against all who would use violence and ethnic intimidation to achieve their ends, whether as private citizens or as law enforcement officials. Sponsor, Vice President Middleton Bullock.
Please ask the Council President, Councilman Henry, Councilwoman McCray, Councilman Stokes, Councilwoman Sneed, Councilman Pinkett, Councilman Dorsey, making sure I didn't miss any, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark as co-sponsors. Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, a lot has happened since our last council meeting, and I just wanted us all to go on record that we are definitely against police brutality in our city, and join our colleagues around the country and other cities like Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago. And as you know, I belong and represent our council in various national organizations on their board, sharing our best practices. And we're all the cities that are part of that organization they're doing the same thing, and just trying to, share the things that we work on together. And, it's ironic that our particular council is doing this as we're working through our budget. It just came at a time that we need to let our constituency know that we are definitely against police brutality. We support the peaceful protests that have been going on around in our city, the Black Lives Matter efforts. For me, this really triggers a lot of memories. I want to share that I had an opportunity to be part of the March on Washington, believe it or not. I was a child, but attended with my family, and that is a memory that stays with me. And, also as a wife of a African-American husband and African-American son, I, have been through, and I'm sure a number of us can relate to the things that are happening in this city and throughout the country. I'm so grateful that I see so many mixed races joining in this peaceful protest, and prayerful that we can get through this. And there definitely needs to be changes just within our whole system, and it's going to take bold changes in policy. Council President Scott, you have been on the forefront of equity and pushing accountability, and I think that our city needs to know that we stand with you in moving all these things forward. And I'd like to yield to you if you have anything to add, and then I'd like to ask for immediate adoption.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. I will simply add this, is that we have to change. We know that we have seen far too many young men, young women who are just no longer with their families solely because of what they look like and where they come from. And we cannot continue to have this. You can see across this country and across this world that folks are not going to allow things to change, to stay the same, and that deep change is coming. And those who don't want deep change should just get out of the way, because it's coming, because it's the right thing. We cannot continue to have this happen in a country that's supposed to be the leader of the free world. Without objections, your rules will be suspended. The rules are suspended. Roll call.
President Scott.
Aye.
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yes.
Councilman Dorsey.
Yes.
Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
Yes.
Sponsor Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes. Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved. The resolution has been adopted.
Thank you all.
City Council Resolution 20-0231R, informational hearing, bringing back Victory Gardens, for the purpose of inviting the Health Commissioner, the Director of Recreation and Parks, the Director of Sustainability, and community leaders to discuss the efficacy of increasing community gardens within our neighborhoods in order to offset COVID-19 and its ancillary effects, as well as generally making our city a greener, healthier, and cleaner place to live. Sponsor Burnett Bullock.
Chair recognizes Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this resolution is calling for a hearing to promote the idea of Victory Gardens, which were common practice during World War I and World War II. I see Mary Pat flinching there. It is one, it was a morale booster, but two, there were impacts on food systems at that time. And we have seen already during this pandemic that there have been food shortages and impact on food distribution, which could only get worse potentially as this continues to rage on. And we want to encourage residents to do private gardens that they share with their community as a both community building exercise and to have local food sources and food networks. So look forward to a hearing on this and to really lift up the work that people are doing all across our city already anyway with urban farming and urban gardens. So thank you.
Please add the President, Councilwoman McCray, Councilman Henry, Councilman Dorsey, Council Vice President Milton, Councilman Reisinger, Councilman Cohen, co-sponsors, Councilman Pinkett, as a co-sponsor, Councilwoman Clark as a co-sponsor. This has been assigned to the committee. Committee report now move to bills on second reader.
Mr. President, point of order.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we read short titles on second and third reader for the duration of the hearing.
Without objection, we will read short titles for the remainder of the meeting. Short titles will be read for the remainder of the meeting. Budget and Appropriations Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0527, ordinance of estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021.
Thank you, colleagues. Now is the moment. We have heard talk and time again, and we know here in Baltimore We are struggling not just through COVID-19, but an ongoing epidemic of gun violence. We are also called to action by the largest civil rights demonstrations taking place in a lifetime, not just here in Baltimore, but across the country and across the world. When folks say, Will, what would you have done when things got tough, when the movement started? What would you have done? Now is the time for us to see that. This is the first year that we can start to reimagine how Baltimore prioritizes this budget. We know that we have major deficits due to the coronavirus pandemic, and when you have that, we know that every city dollar must count. Many of the young people who have led the protests and demonstrations here in Baltimore have been demanding that we finally think about investing in their future rather than simply investing in their failures. We must answer that call. Since the unfortunate death of Freddie Gray 5 years ago, this council has worked to transform how we see public safety in Baltimore and been pushing police reform from the very chambers that I sit in today. But we also know that we've said time and time again that we are going to have to see the day where we actually get serious about reimagining the city's budget and having our police department's budget be looked at and reduced responsibly over time while we can see an investment in other agencies. Now is the time to start to do that tough work. And I am proud that earlier today, the Budget Committee actually passed several cuts and amendments to the budget bill that will actually begin that work. This is not the beginning. This is just the beginning of how we're going to do that. And we can do that in a way that does not ignore the fact that we as a council asked for a consent decree, and we must honor that, and we must honor that financially as well. This does not ignore the fact that we live in a city that continuously has high levels of violence, so that we have to have some sort of protection. But it also shows that we can get serious about doing this over time, so that one day we will have a city whose budget is aligned with the priorities of how we can invest better in our future. This is just the beginning to anyone who's listening. This is not the end. This is definitely not the middle. We will do this, and we will do it responsibly so that we can meet our needs in everything that the city has to fight each and every day in Baltimore, while also understanding that the way that we have been budgeting our budget for at least the time that I've been alive has not been working for us. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me? Thank you. The Budget and Appropriations Committee held another marathon year of hearings. We started off on May 27th for City Council Taxpayers Night, which was advertised in the Baltimore Sun. This gives citizens the opportunity to provide public input on the ordinance of estimates and the other two accompanying bills. We held approximately 52 hours worth of hearings last week. First, I want to thank all the committee members, yourself, Mr. President, and our other colleagues who are not on the committee for their attentiveness throughout this process. I'd also like to thank the agency heads who came into City Council chambers, all their hard work on behalf of our city. Also of note, Mr. President, your office, specifically Caitlin Young and Dominic McAlilly, Mayor Young's Mayor's Office of Government Relations, specifically Matt Stegman and Nina Themlis, the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, Bob Seneme and Daniel Ramos, Nancy Ray and Tony DeFranco from the Department of Legislative Reference, and finally, the most important thank you here goes to Marguerite Curran, staff to the committee, who helped make the week run as smoothly as it could. So a couple quick things, Mr. President. One, I'd like to ask for a roll call vote on any of the amendment votes, which is not unanimous. Secondly, I'd like to point our colleagues' attention to a spreadsheet that I sent out earlier that was accompanied by the most recent version or edits to the amendments. The amendments are structured in a way that you're going to vote on them as packages, or I'm going to move them as packages. There are 10 packages of amendments. The first amendment, Amendment 1, and I'm going to give a very brief narrative description, which is going to sync up with what's in the spreadsheet that I sent. It's not necessarily going to be word for word in the amendment package. Mr. President, I'd like to ask if you or any council members have any questions about that prior to proceeding.
I do not. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment number 1 is to the Police Department, Service number 621, Activity 95. This is an allocated appropriation in the amount of $10,725,750. I want to note that this amendment is highlighted in yellow in the spreadsheet. There was a typo originally, and we had cut $10,730,000. So this is a difference of $4,250. At this time, I move the amendment favorably.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
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 All opposed, all opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment package number 2 is made up of 3 amendments. Amendment 2A, which is Police Department Service 622, Activity 95, Police Patrol. This is an unallocated appropriation in the amount of $500,000. The second amendment in this package is Amendment number 3, Police Department Service 626, Activity number 95, Data-Driven Strategies, in the amount of $500,000. This is also an unallocated appropriation. And finally, the third amendment in package 2 is Amendment number 5, Police Department Service 853, Activity 95, Patrol Support Services. This is an unallocated appropriation in the amount of $1 million. Mr. President, I move the package of amendments favorably.
All those in favor of approving this package of amendments, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Package is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Package number 3 is made up of 2 amendments. Amendment 2B, Police Department, Service 622, Activity 26, Police Patrol. This is for 2 new community intelligence centers in addition to the existing 2 in the amount of $176,820. Also, the second amendment for Package 3 is Amendment number 6, State's Attorney's Office, Service 115, Activity 18, Prosecution of Criminals. And this is also for the attorneys that would accompany that function within the police department for the 2 new previously proposed community intelligence centers in the amount of $444,371. Mr. President, I move that package number 3 of amendments favorably.
All those in favor of approving these packages, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The package is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Package number 4 is 1 amendment. Amendment number 4A, Police Department, Service 816, Activity 005, Special Operations Mounted Unit. This is in the amount of $553,735. Mr. President, I move the amendment favorably and call for a roll call.
All right, roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray, Councilwoman McCray. Thumbs up if it's a yes or no. Thumbs up, yes. Councilman Dorsey,
Yes. End of
Councilman Henry,
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
No.
There was a nay, Councilman Schleifer? Thank you.
Would you like to put them down also?
Vice President Middleton,
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett,
Yes.
Councilman Burnett,
Yes.
Councilman Bullock,
Okay.
Councilman Reisinger,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
No.
Councilman Stokes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 12 yeas and 3 nays.
All right. The amendment passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment package number 5 is made up of 1 amendment. Amendment number 4B, Police Department, Service 816, Activity 006, this is Special Operations Marine Unit. This is in the amount of $1,420,313. The source of these funds are general fund. I note that because the subsequent package that I'm going to move comes from a different source, and that's the reason that the amendment needed to be bifurcated. At this time, I move the amendment favorably and call for roll call.
Roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray, Councilman Dorsey. That was a yay for Councilwoman McCray. Councilman Dorsey.
Yes.
Councilman Dorsey. Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer. Yay. Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
No.
Councilman
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilwoman Carl.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 14 yeas and 1 nay.
Amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Package number 6 is one amendment, Amendment 4C, Police Department, Service 816, Activity number 006, Special Operations. This is for the Marine Unit, the amount of $376,900. Colleagues, this item is highlighted in yellow in your spreadsheet. The President's office did have discussions with the Police Department today, and there was agreement that $80,000 should be left in that account. I will note that the previous number the committee voted on this morning is $456,900. Mr. President, I move the amendment favorably and ask for roll call.
Roll call.
President Scott.
Yes.
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yes.
Councilman Dorsey. That is a yay, Councilman Dorsey. Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer. That is a yay. Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. My vote is no. I am supportive of what you have proposed of consolidating the operations of the Marine Unit in both the Fire Department and the Police Department. I would point out that I'm one of 3 districts that does touch the water where these folks patrol. I look forward to working with your administration next year to figure out a way how to consolidate that and see increased efficiencies for both of those functions, the same taxpayer dollars. But at this time, I feel it is premature to cancel that service until we've done that work of figuring out how to consolidate it. So I vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 14 yeas and 1 nay.
Thank you. The amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment package number 7 is made up of 3 amendments. The reason I'm moving those 3 amendments is those all passed committee unanimously. So my assumption is that they are going to pass the full council unanimously. Certainly, if that's not the case, I appreciate you accommodating my request for roll call. They are made up of, first, Amendment 7A, Police Department, Service 621. This is various activities, services administration. This is in the amount of $2,407,522. General fund source for police overtime. The second amendment is Amendment 7B, Police Department, Service 626, various activities, data-driven strategies. General fund Source, and the amount is $1,323,969. That is also police overtime. And finally, the third amendment is Amendment 7D, Police Department, Service 635. The activity is various. The service is the recruitment section. The amount is $2,059,193. General fund is the source for police overtime. And actually, I am calling for roll call on this one, Mr. President. Thank you.
Roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray, thumbs up, yes. Councilman Dorsey,
Yes.
thumbs up. Councilman Henry,
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer, thumbs up, yay. Vice President Middleton,
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett,
Yes.
Councilman Burnett,
Yes.
Councilman Bullock,
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger,
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. Mr. President, I cannot support cuts to overtime considering the following information. Number one, we spent about $48 million in police overtime 2 years ago. We all agree that is entirely too much. This past year, we spent about $43 million in overtime this current year, and that includes COVID response as well as the protests. That still is entirely too much. This year, we are budgeted for $33 million. Again, still entirely too much. That being said, we know for a fact that we are going to exceed $33 million. From a fiscal perspective, I am concerned about the fact that we have a $45 million price tag coming for Kirwan Commission implementation in year one. In addition, I estimate that we are going to be at least a $35 million revenue deficit based on COVID-19, putting us at $80 million in the hole. And I am concerned about the fiscal health of the city if we are left looking for an additional amount of overtime, which what we've proposed to cut is somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million. So I vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Stokes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
Present, 14 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. The amendment approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Package number 8 is one amendment. Amendment 7C, Police Department, Service 628, various activities. This is the Public Integrity Bureau, general fund source in the amount of $207,695 in police overtime. Mr. President, I move the amendment favorably.
Is there a second? It fails for a lack of a second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment package number 9, one amendment. Amendment 7E, Police Department, Service 642, various activities. This is the Crime Laboratory and Evidence Control, general fund source for overtime in the amount of $491,569. Mr. President, I move the amendment favorably and call for roll call.
Roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Dorsey. Wait, you moved on my screen. Councilman Dorsey.
Thumbs up.
Thank you, sir. That is a yay. Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
No.
Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
No.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 13 yeas and 2 nays.
Thank you. The amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello. And Councilman, remember, if you are not speaking, to please be on mute. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. The 10th and final package, I promise, is Amendment 7F, Police Department, Service 807, various activities. This is the Compliance Bureau. This is a general fund source for overtime in the amount of $459,965. Mr. President, I move the amendment favorably and call for roll call.
Roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray, thumbs up, yay. Councilman Dorsey,
Councilman Dorsey votes yes.
Councilman Henry,
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer, thumbs up, yay. Vice President Middleton,
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett,
Yes.
Councilman Burnett,
Yes.
Councilman Bullock,
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger,
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. As we all know, every single member of this council, this is a police department deeply in need of reform. We have certainly made some progress over the past year since Commissioner Harrison is here. I truly believe that we have the top reformed police commissioner in the country, and I'm very hopeful that he's going to do great things working with all of us moving forward. That being said, in addition to the concerns that I raised about overtime previously, there is no way that I can support a cut to either this or the Public Integrity Bureau. These are the functions that are working to ensure that our consent decree is implemented, and I simply can't support that because of how critically important that reform is and making sure that we do implement that consent decree the correct way. For that reason, I vote no.
Councilman Stokes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 14 yeas and 1 nay.
Amendment approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the amendments from the committee. My understanding is other council members may have amendments they wish to move.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair, as well. Thank you for all your work on the budget. Colleagues, you have in your inbox 2 amendments from me. And I'd like to explain each of them, and I will ask for a separate vote on the 2 of them. The first amendment responds to a request that went unfulfilled last year. It was addressed during last year's budget. And again, this year, it was addressed with the police department simply to ask for some information. I've done a lot of research into drawing a line around the city council's power relative to making certain conditional requests and constraints on funds. And what this amendment does is not make a cut. It simply places a constraint on the release of certain funds. This is a new concept for the city council, but not for essentially any other legislative body. This is something that happens in significant numbers of amendments in Annapolis every single year, and something that every time I go to our colleagues, our counterparts in government at the state level, and ask them, you know, and talk to them about why the challenges that we have in trying to bring agencies over to do the kind of things that we seek to do, they always respond, you need to put language in the budget that makes them do the things that they need to do. It's not enough to ask them to do it in the budget and hope that they follow through. We did that last year. They did not follow through. So this year is the year where we have to say, look, you can have this money. You just got to do the things that you say you're going to do. And so that's what this amendment is. If there was any comments or anything from anybody, I would take them, but otherwise I would make a motion, Mr. President.
All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay. Can we get a roll call on this?
Roll call. Roll call.
President Scott,
Yes.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray. Yay, thumbs up. Councilman Dorsey,
Yes.
Councilman Henry,
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer,
Now, I haven't had a chance to fully read it, in the last minute nature, so I'm going to vote no.
Vice President Middleton,
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett,
I haven't had a chance to review it. No.
Councilman Burnett,
I had an opportunity to speak to the sponsor, and feel comfortable with voting yes.
Councilman Bullock,
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger,
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. I did have a chance to talk to the sponsor. I did have a chance to talk to the law department as well as our counsel. I'm not convinced that this is legally enforceable. I'm also not convinced that the sponsor is incorrect. I think that moving forward over the next couple months, we do need to get an answer to this question as to whether or not we can do this. So I appreciate the sponsor's frustration because, as you know, Mr. President, you and I have sat next to him in every one of these hearings when he's asked for it. So I certainly understand the frustration. So that being said, I'm going to vote yes.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed,
I'd like to
Councilwoman
explain my no vote, only because I heard the conversation, the public conversation, when this issue was raised, and I understand the frustration on the part of my colleague, but I'm not ready to say we should put that request into a law when I heard the commissioner say if the councilman would ask him, he would see that it was done. Maybe it didn't happen before, but I'm not ready to say we need that as a law in the city of Baltimore right now to produce certain reports in certain sequences throughout a year. Understand the frustration, but my vote is no on this. Thank you.
Mr. President, you have 12 yeas and 3 nays.
Amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is a second amendment in this package, and it very simply defunds the drug enforcement section of the police department. I don't know how much more simply or elaborately I could or need to put this. The war on drugs is an absolute appalling failure that has decimated communities and never even been about what it espouses to be. It's a war on black people, and it's just not enough to wait around for decriminalization or higher authority to stop playing around with people's lives. Now is an opportunity for us to simply stop participating, stop being complicit in what this war on black people has brought on for generations now. I would note that in speaking about the need to perform drug enforcement, the police department frequently notes its relation to catching violent offenders, except that we have a whole other section of the budget funding targeting of violent offenders. If the combination of that funding to target violent offenders and all of the standard patrol, the district action teams, the SWAT team, the additional special funded patrolling that happens in the city that is in the budget, all funded as separate line items, if that is not enough to catch violent offenders, I hardly think that there's any credibility to the idea that if we continue to fund specifically the war on drugs, that anything will get any better than it could be with all these other things. And so, Mr. President, I move this amendment.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
President Scott,
No.
Councilman Cohen,
Suspend my vote, please. I believe the war on drugs, as my colleague mentioned, has been a complete and abject failure in the city of Baltimore. It has normalized behavior that we now know is public and mental health. As a former teacher in West Baltimore, more often than not, had students get pulled aside, have their backpacks checked, just dehumanized and degraded by police checking not for guns, not for knives, but for drugs. I think that in Baltimore in particular, one of the birthplaces of zero tolerance and mass incarceration and the war on drugs, we have to do better. I think we have to rethink how we treat folks who have the disease of addiction. And so I support Commissioner Harrison's leadership and his attempts at reforming this district, and I vote yes.
Councilwoman McCray, thumbs down, nay. Councilman Dorsey,
Yes.
Councilman Henry,
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
So first off, I'm looking at this email that was sent at 5:14, 14 minutes into this meeting, and it only has one attachment. It only has the last amendment, so I don't even have this current amendment. But in any event, you know, I do echo a lot of what Councilman Cohen has said, and there's certainly a lot of work that we have to do as a council and a city about these issues. But at the same time, it's my understanding, just from what what Councilman Dorsey is saying, to completely, I'm not even sure specifically which lines he's talking about, but if I'm hearing him correctly in all that unit, I mean, we have federal task force that we participate in, and it's my understanding that those line items in the budget are probably the same ones you're referencing. And so this is far more reaching than just the specific things you're talking about. We certainly, I certainly agree with even Councilman Dorsey on some of the items that he's talking about, but I think that this amendment, and I don't have it in front of me, but if we remove all of that funding, this is far more reaching than that, and there's also a tremendous amount of consequences for us as a city, and we will lose participation in these task forces if we can't fund our share of them. And so I'm going to vote no.
Vice President Middleton.
We definitely need, and I call it the 3 R's: reform, restructure, and redirection. Because what is happening is not working. It's clearly not working. So I'm going to vote a yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
No.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote.
All right, so again, with all due respect to my colleague, I happen to be a Black man who grew up in the Mississippi Crack era. I had a number of family friends who were impacted by it. Our people understand the challenge in the war of drugs. And also represent West and Southwest Baltimore. We have significant drug traffic, open air drug markets. So I couldn't in conscience be someone. I understand we can do things with fast. At the same time, we have to be able to do another enforcement. My vote's no.
Councilman Reisinger.
No.
Councilman Costello. Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote. I represent Central West Baltimore for the same reasons that Councilman Bullock described about West and Southwest Baltimore. My vote is no. Thank you.
Councilman Stokes.
I vote no. One, the failure on war on drugs has been a failure, and I don't have the amendment in front of me, and I don't know what it says, what it explains, so I vote no.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Sorry, I'm going to vote yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Okay, oh. I'm voting no. We went, this is a serious business that a lot of people have taken a lot of time trying to balance out the needs, but yet deliver the first step, the beginning of the beginning of moving toward the future that we envision for the police department, for policing, and for equity at every level. This is serious, made me worried, made all of us, including the sponsor here, look at things, think about things, and try to do the right thing now, at the moment when we must begin the act. Here we are looking at something now I've never had a chance to look at, talk to anybody about, and not only that, we're not going to apparently, reportedly, be able to take these cuts today in this budget, in this government, and move some of that money in places that we think more appropriate. Here's drugs. What kind of resources do we need to add and add? By next year at this time, we should, if the voters support us, have the ability to transfer cuts to other organizations and programs that need the money to do the work they train to do, that like social workers and healthcare professionals. This year, we can't transfer this money. It goes in, I believe it goes by law into a tax cut, a property tax cut, because we can cut, but we can't transfer. But in the area of drugs, yes, what a failure. I remember when it all began. What a failure. But let's at least be able to bring money to the social workers, the health professionals, the people, the mentor organizations, when we make a decision around this issue in this budget. I vote no, thank you.
Mr. President, you have 6 yeas and 9 nays.
The amendment fails. Chair recognizes, hold on here, y'all, my screen's messed up. Chair recognizes, Councilman Dorsey, you got a comment?
Yes, Mr. President, I appreciate it. I just wanted to say for the record that the 2 amendments here were on the same piece of paper. So for those who said that they didn't have them, they were on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman, let me, and you and I have had this conversation, let me be clear that I too, as you know, support ending how we deal with drugs, and we're going to fight that fight. We are going to go and change laws. We're going to make sure that those things happen. But I think that when you hear the concerns of Councilman Bullock and others, we have to consider those as well. And that note, moving forward, we will be operating differently as a city as we again begin to reimagine how we can talk about public safety. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move ordinance 20-0527 favorably as amended.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Roll call. Can we get a roll call?
Yep, roll call.
President Scott.
Yes.
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yes.
Councilman Dorsey.
No.
Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
Yes.
Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote.
Floor is yours, Council.
As I stated on Friday during the police department portion of the budget hearings, anyone who thinks that the call by Baltimoreans for the city to make adjustments to the police department's budget is simply a response to the murder of George Floyd and the social racial justice groundswell that is sweeping our nation has just not been paying attention. For as long as I've been a member of this council, and I would imagine for many years prior to that, with every mic check, Baltimore has been shouting for change, marching for reform, and even voting for a transformation of our budget that reflects a more sophisticated and holistic approach to not just public safety, but to all of the diversity of issues that were and remain endemic to our city prior to the pandemic that currently grips us. Black men in our city have been dying, and Black mothers have been crying for an approach that reduces our current emphasis on law enforcement tactics and instead places the premium on public health strategies to address crime, gun violence, and behavioral health. And for far too long, those tears have fallen on unsympathetic ears. The modifications approved earlier reflect an attempt to reallocate resources within the limited authority of the council, and I believe in no way is an indictment on the faithful and committed officers who work tirelessly to ensure the safety of all of our residents. But that step is not enough. But let me be clear, we can try to, if we like, and cast aspersion and blame on current targets all we want, but the police department is not the root of Baltimore's problem. It is merely the fruit. In their inappropriate actions, they are the outward expressions of too many hearts that harbor thoughts and opinions that are easily joked about in clubs and at dinner tables, but conveniently cloaked in public venues. They are the result of budgets that favor some neighborhoods over others. They are the result of years of abandoning Black and brown children and blaming them for their lack of success. If Baltimore has a problem in Sandtown, then we also have a problem in Guilford. And if we have issues in Harlem Park, then we also have issues in Roland Park. Problems that won't be solved solely by the finance department, but will be only addressed by a unified city. One that stands together, not just around the obvious offenses, but also is in solidarity when any community and persons in our city are denied the access and resources that they so desperately need. One that doesn't conveniently study the plight of Black Baltimore with no intention to heal, and one that doesn't find profit in the condition of poor people with no desire to rescue them. Last year, I testified against the budget, and I was told that the budget was received so late that adjustments could not be made. Well, we can't blame former Mayor Pugh anymore. This budget is ours. We are responsible for what it does and what it doesn't do, and all of it can't be blamed on COVID-19. I would not dare stand before you and say that from my perspective that at its heart this budget is malicious in its final product, but I will be so forward to say that in some areas it's just not smart. In some areas it just does not understand what a return on an investment is and the ultimate value of investing in the most vulnerable people, because that's often where our greatest return can be found. You don't have to be a counselor or a sociologist. You don't even have to care about Black youth to understand that young people between the ages of 18 to 24, not in school and not in work, represent the most critical target audience in our city. And year after year in a city where less than 20% of our graduating students are career and college ready, and 30% never make it to graduation, we commit just enough resources to provide life preservers to 900 of those young people while leaving the other 15,000 to tread water at best or at worst to drown. It would be like the captain of the Titanic calling out, all men and able body in the lifeboats first. Women and children grab whatever piece of wood you can find. You don't have to be a prisoner advocate or criminal justice professional or employment specialist to realize that nearly 8,000 citizens a year return to our communities every year, the lion's share to 4 zip codes in the city's most disinvested communities. And while we celebrate programs like the Living Classrooms Fresh Start program that engages these young men and women prior to release, we refuse to allocate the resources to continue our own pre-release engagement that has proven to yield positive results. And because we refuse to find $250,000, we hold our breath hoping that thousands of ex-offenders will find their way to Mondawmin Mall or some other service for help. If it's not malicious, it's just not smart. And while there are other examples, I wonder what the state must think when we return millions of dollars each year or refuse to draw down on monies that could help seniors, the poor, working class families rehab and weatherize their homes because we can't find $300,000 to hire a staff to manage the money. So instead, millions of dollars go unused and unrequested,
and hundreds of property owners each year are deprived of resources that they need to stay in their homes and instead are forced to potentially become just another name on our tax sale list or to be conveniently gentrified out of their neighborhoods. Not malicious, just not smart. In the foreword to Jamar Tisby's book, The Color of Compromise, it is written as it relates to the equity and justice that is necessary for our communities to heal from years of social and racial injustice, that if we built the walls on purpose, we need to tear down the walls on purpose. Well, when it comes to the city of Baltimore and the inequalities that exist in our city, if they were built on purpose, then they need to be torn down on purpose. In my opinion, this budget doesn't remove enough bricks. I vote no.
Just a moment. Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
I'm going to vote yes to this budget, but I also want to make sure that I go on record for saying for this budget that, like, we've been hearing it a lot to defund the police, but I think reallocating resources in a manner that more appropriately reflects a proactive strategy to facilitate meaningful and sustainable change is what we're after. For years, investment in public health, social services, and our youth future have been bypassed to fund our police department. This reactive approach, attempting to treat symptoms instead of the root causes, has proven to be ineffective and inefficient. The budget for the Baltimore City Police Department has steadily increased each year with little return on investment. This has been a long week of budget hearings for the City Council. I encourage every citizen to research what city agencies have proposed for the upcoming fiscal year. It has been stated countless times before that we cannot police our way out of violence. It is time for change, and I am in support of divesting from the police department and investing in our youth and neighborhoods, and starting now by approving cuts in the budget. It is merely enough to talk about not being a part of the problem, but voting against business as usual is one step out of many to come in the right direction. So I vote yes to approve this budget.
Councilwoman.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 14 yeas and 2 nays.
Thank you.
Mr. President, point of order.
Councilman Costello.
Ledge Director just said 14 yeas and 2 nays.
No, yeah, it can't be. That will make it a 16-member council.
Yes, 13 and 2. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Costello.
Thank you. That's the City College math there. This bill moves to third reading.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend Rule 12-1B to move a bill from second to third reader on the same day for Council Ordinance 20-0527.
Without objection, the rules will be suspended. The rules are suspended. This bill moves to third reading.
Roll call vote, Mr. President. That's for President Scott.
Yes.
Councilman Cohen.
Claim my vote, please. Thank you. I'm going to vote yes on this budget, and I'm going to put out an urgent call that the funds that were cut.
Councilman Cohen, this is actually a vote to move this to third reading, not a vote on the budget.
That's appropriate.
Yeah, just letting you know.
All right, move to third reader, then yes, and we'll take my floor speech in a minute.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yeah.
Councilman Dorsey.
Yes.
Councilman Henry.
Yes.
Councilman Schleifer.
Yes.
Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
And I hope my colleague was going to talk about, and I hope he's able to now, how sad it is if we can't transfer some of these funds to where they can be used to affect. That's what it's really about, and I hope he has a chance to now say, Mr. President, to now say what he was going to say, which I think I understand already.
Thank you. Yep, we will give him that opportunity when we get there for sure, Councilman. We want to definitely hear what he has to say. This bill moves to third reader. Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
Mr. President, point of order. I think there's two other bills in budget.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. Continue, Mr. Young.
City Council Bill 20-0528, Annual Property Tax, Fiscal Year 2021.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably.
All those in favor of approving this bill say aye.
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 Say nay.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right. This bill is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, I think it's back to Mr. Young.
Yes, sir. The bill moves to third reader, Mr. President.
Yep, bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0533, operating budget for the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021.
Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorably.
All those in favor of approving this bill say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. This bill moves to third reader. Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 19-0436, city streets closing 3 10-foot alleys.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the committee, Housing and Urban Committee, heard this bill on June 9th. We're moving the bill favorable and one will be favorable to that. So I do move this bill favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 19-0437, city streets opening North Durham Avenue.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 19-0438, city streets closing North Durham Street and a 16-foot alley.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion is approved. This bill is approved. This bill moves to third reading.
City Council Bill 20-0502, Woodbury Historic District.
Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are amendments on our colleague's desk. And I move the amendment favorably.
All those in favor of approving the amendment say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The amendments are approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill favorable as amended.
All those in favor of approving this bill as amended say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reading. Land Use Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0482, Inclusionary Housing Requirements, Sunset Extension.
Chair recognizes Councilman Rogers.
Mr. President, thank you. I think there may be a floor amendment on this bill.
Yes. Chair recognizes Councilman Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment was sent around just before lunch today. I raised the matter during the luncheon today. This is an amendment that was worked out with the support of the Department of Housing and Community Development. They were the leaders in setting this sunset extension for 2 years. And a significant part of that length of time was to allow the Department of Housing and Community Development to hire a consultant to advise on 2 core things. One is how the department, how DHCD over the next 2 years in the interim, during the period of this extension, could possibly better interpret and apply the existing inclusionary housing law. The other pot of deliverables from the consultant is about the recommendations on what a new inclusionary housing law should be. And the supposition is that 2 years is long enough for us to both learn something from applying a new set of recommendations to the existing law and also go through the entire legislative process to get a new inclusionary housing law on the books before the end of this sunset extension. Obviously, interim recommendations become less and less valuable the longer it takes for us to get them. So it's imperative that we get them as soon as possible. And also the recommendations on what the new law should be should come to us long enough for the council to be deliberative. And so what this set of benchmarks does is simply say that there's a timeline for when these 2 sets of things should be delivered to the Department of Housing and Community Development by their consultant, so that we can do the work that lies ahead, setting these deadlines at 6 months and a year from now. Mr. Council President, I move the amendment.
I'd like to may I second them and speak for a minute?
We don't need a second, Councilwoman, but Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark. You can have the floor. But I want to remind all of our colleagues that we have another meeting and the Board of Estimates that is.
I'll be brief. I'm already short. Basically, these amendments set benchmarks and guidelines that really help me to support this bill, which I just don't want to see 2 years gone with the same old, non-productive plan. So I see these as benchmarks, as requiring reports and results all through the 2 years, and allows me to, and I hope others, to be comfortable that we'll get somewhere with this. And thank you to my colleagues, to Mr. President.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. The amendment is approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the bill favorable as amended.
All those in favor of approving this bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. This motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I make a motion to waive the rules in order to be able to move this bill on to third reader for final passage tonight.
Roll call.
President Scott.
Yes.
Councilman Cohen.
Yes.
Councilwoman McCray.
Yes.
Councilman Dorsey.
Yes.
That's a yay. Councilman Henry.
Yay.
Councilman Schleifer. That's a yay. Thumbs up. Vice President Middleton.
Yes.
Councilman Pinkett.
Yes.
Councilman Burnett.
Yes.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes.
Councilman Reisinger.
Yes.
Councilman Costello.
Yes.
Councilman Stokes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Yes.
Councilwoman Clark.
Yes.
All right. The ayes have it. This bill moves to third reader today.
City Council Bill 20-0506, Baltimore City Critical Area Management Program, Critical Area Manual, Map, and Zoning.
Chair recognizes Councilman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I have two floor amendments from the planning staff that are technical in nature. I make a motion to move those two amendments.
All those in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those who say nay. The amendments are approved. Chair recognizes Councilman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the bill favorable as amended.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 20-0511, Sale of Property, Former Bed of Cromwell Street.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill came out of committee on May 21st, 2020, sponsored by Councilman Eric Costello of the 11th District. The committee approved the bill with a favorable report. I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Say nay.
Aye.
The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0514, Bond Issue, Affordable Housing Loan, $12 million.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
This bill came out of committee on June 4th, 2020, sponsor President Scott on behalf of the administration. The committee approved the bill with a favorable report. I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0515, Bond Issue, School Loan, $38 million.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
This bill also came out of the committee on June 4th, 2020, sponsored by President Scott on behalf of the administration. The committee approved the bill with a favorable report, and I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0516, Bond Issue, Community and Economic Development Loan, $38 million.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill came out of the committee also on June 4th, 2020. President Scott was the sponsor on behalf of the administration. The committee approved the bill with a favorable report, and I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0517, Bond Issue, Public Infrastructure Loan, $72 million.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. June 4th was a busy day. This bill came out of committee on June 4th, 2020, and President Scott was the sponsor on behalf of the administration. The committee approved the bill with a favorable report, and I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0534, Sale of Property, 5001 Reisterstown Road, aka Langston Hughes Elementary School.
Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this bill came out of committee also on June 4th, 2020. The sponsor was President Scott on behalf of the administration. This property is in the 6th Councilmatic District. The committee approved the bill unanimously with a favorable report, and I move the bill as favorable.
All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I explain my vote, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Schleifer.
Yeah, so first off, as a point of clarity, I just want to say that I don't think the city with close to $4 billion worth of real estate should ever allow anything to be done in a private sale. And if our contracts going back historically have allowed for a private sale to take place, that is something that should change. I do respect the mayor's ability and authority, as well as the council person of that district's ability and authority to select what's in the best interest of their district. However, as far as the city is concerned, we should never have a sale of property that is private. And so what I would ask is that the administration strongly consider going the public route as opposed to the private route, which they have the choice to do once this bill passes. And so for that reason alone, simply because of a private sale, I will vote no on this, and I will vote no on a sale of any property that is going to be done privately. I think that it should always be done publicly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The motion is...
Mr. President, may I just say one thing? That I'd like for a matter of record. Thank you. I'd just like for a matter of record that there was close to 40 support letters from surrounding and participating organizations, LifeBridge Hospital, which plays a big role, LifeBridge Sinai, which plays a huge role in that community. I could go down the list, but the support from the community and individual residents, and also people that have been affected and saved by things that go on in that building. And those are some of the main reasons why I have total and complete support. So I just want to make that as a matter of record. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Third reader requiring the invocation of City Council Rule 12-1 for a same-day advance from second to third reader.
City Council Bill 20-0482, inclusionary housing requirements, sunset extension. President Scott, Cohen, McCray, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 20-0527, ordinance of estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. President Scott, Cohen, McCray, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton.
No. Please.
Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett.
No.
Reisinger. Would you like to call, Mr. President?
No, keep going.
Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
Please note that Councilman Dorsey and Councilman Pinkett are no's. The ayes have it. This bill is approved. Third reader for final passage.
City Council Bill 19-0477, solid waste surcharges, exemption. President Scott, Cohen, McCray, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 20-0522, Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals, repeal of physically present requirements. President Scott, Cohen, McCray, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
No.
Dorsey has a no. Councilwoman Clark has a no. This bill is approved.
Mr. President, I was also a no. This is our councilman.
Please add Councilman Burnett as a no. I'm sorry, Councilman. You were not on my screen for some reason. Bills withdrawn. Please note that the following bill read by the clerk has been withdrawn.
City Council Bill 20-0530, Post-COVID-19 Foreclosure Disincentive Act of 2020. Sponsor, Dorsey.
Thank you. Committee announcements. When you hear your committee, please proceed with any announcements that you might have. Budget and appropriation, Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. No announcements for that committee or judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you. Education and youth. All right.
No, sir, thank you.
Equity and structure.
Mr. President, can you come back to me? I'm trying to find the committee form.
we'll come back to you at the 6 o'clock.
Actually, well, yeah, I'll do it at the 6:30, right, or whatever it really is.
Yeah. Executive Appointments Committee, Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Executive Appointments Committee will hold a hearing. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
We'll hold a hearing on Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, at 10 a.m. to review the following nominations for Mayor's Commission on Disabilities: David Greenberg, Michael King, Yolande E. Paxton. Also on the same day, Wednesday, June the 24th, at 10 a.m. to review the second appointments will review the following nominations for the Mayor's Commission on Disabilities: Canary Davis, Adam Levine, and for the Board of Ethics of Baltimore City Controllers nominee Arnold H. Sampson. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Housing and Urban Affairs Committee will be hearing two bills on Tuesday, July 28th. First, at 2 p.m., we'll be hearing City Council Bill 180202, Ordinance Repeal of Madison Park North Urban Renewal Area and Plan. And that will be followed at 2:05 by City Council Bill 190429, Ordinance Vacant Structures Posting Owner Information. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Labor Committee.
No, nothing for me, Mr. President.
Thank you. Legislative Investigations.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Wednesday, July 15th at 5 p.m., the Legislative Legislative Investigations Committee will be having a legislative oversight hearing for the purpose of discussing the 2020 primary election.
Thank you. Land Use Committee.
Mr. President, the Land Use Committee will hold a hearing on Wednesday, July 8th at 1:10 p.m. on Bill 19-0475, zoning. It's a conditional use conversion of a single-family two-dwelling unit. Hold on 1 second, please. In the R8 zoning district, located at 806 Reservoir Street. This hearing was rescheduled from June the 17th. The Land Use Committee will hold a hearing on Wednesday, July 15th, p.m. on Bill 20-0525, zoning, conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to two dwelling units, the R8 zoning district. The variance is located at 316 East 21st Street. Then the Land Use Committee will hold a hearing on Wednesday, July 15th at 1:10 p.m. on Bill 20-0531. This is a rezoning of 3006, 2926, and 2928 Borman Avenue and Block 3185, Lot 49. This hearing was rescheduled from June the 24th. The Land Use Committee will hold a hearing on Wednesday, July 22nd at 1 p.m. on Bill 20-0507, rezoning at 1720 Frederick Avenue. And Mr. President, all these hearings will be conducted as virtual meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Public Safety Committee will hold a hearing on Bill number 19-0431 on July 7th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development.
No announcements.
Thank you. Transportation Committee.
Nothing, Mr. President. I do have a regular announcement when the time comes.
What I am asking us to hold regular announcements for the next meeting. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton.
One second, I just lost my.
And Councilwoman, the meeting will be right following the Board of Estimates meeting.
Oh, okay. So the moment of silence and all that, we're going to wait?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next, Annette, you want me to announce the next council meeting date?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The next council meeting will be held on next Monday, virtually, June 22nd.
No, Councilwoman, the next one is tonight, after the Parking Board of Estimates.
I'm sorry. The next meeting is tonight, following the Board of Estimates here in council chambers. And, I think we're a little late. It was supposed to start at 6:30, but it's right after, the Board of Estimates meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Young.
Just want to remind all the members and anyone who's paying attention, also, if you want to wait on this WebEx, you can, because it will remain up during the duration of the Board of Estimates meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. There being no further business, this concludes the 85th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council.